When we picture ancient civilizations, we often imagine towering pyramids, colossal temples dedicated to forgotten gods, or sprawling palaces where mighty kings once held court. We think of monuments built to defy time itself. But what if I told you that one of the most advanced, meticulously planned, and enduring societies of the ancient world left behind almost none of that? No grand royal tombs, no immense temples, no obvious signs of a powerful ruling class. Just silence and a profound, haunting mystery. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the forgotten corners of history. Today, we're venturing into the enigmatic world of the silent cities of the Indus Valley. By the end of this journey, you'll question everything you thought you knew about how ancient societies functioned and marvel at a people who mastered urban life thousands of years before their time, only to vanish without a trace. If uncovering these astonishing, unsolved historical puzzles fascinates you as much as it fascinates me, then do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss our next expedition into the unknown. So, let's step back some 4,500 years and walk through the perfectly laid streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. We've just begun our journey peering through the mists of time at a civilization that defies many of our assumptions about the ancient world. Now let us truly step onto the dust-laden plains of what is today Pakistan and northwestern India, and witness the very genesis of urban life in a way unlike almost any other. Our destination, the twin jewels of the Indus Valley, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Imagine, if you will, a vast, fertile crescent, not of the Middle East, but stretching along the mighty Indus River and its tributaries. For millennia, this region, fed by the monsoons and the snowmelt from the distant Himalayas, offered an abundance that allowed early communities to flourish. They slowly transitioned from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled agriculturalists, cultivating wheat, barley, and even the earliest forms of cotton. Over time, these small villages, clustered along the life-giving waterways, began to grow, coalesce, and transform. This transformation was not a sudden burst, but a gradual unfolding, a quiet evolution that culminated in something truly extraordinary. While the earliest signs of settled life in the Indus region date back to around 7000 BCE in places like Mehrgarh, it was between 2600 and 1900 BCE that the Indus Valley Civilization reached its zenith, blossoming into a sophisticated, widespread urban culture. This period, often called the mature Harappan phase, is when cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro rose from the alluvial plains, not as haphazard collections of dwellings, but as meticulously planned metropolises, testaments to an advanced understanding of civic organization. Yet for thousands of years, these cities lay silent, buried beneath layers of silt and forgotten by history. Their rediscovery is a tale of serendipity and slow recognition. The story truly begins in the mid-19th century with the expansion of the British Empire into India. In the 1850s, engineers were laying down railway lines connecting distant parts of the subcontinent. Near the modern-day town of Harappa in Punjab, a seemingly inexhaustible supply of uniform, fired bricks was discovered. Locals and then the railway contractors saw these bricks not as historical artifacts, but as convenient, ready-made building material. Thousands upon thousands of them were carted away and crushed for railway ballast, unwittingly destroying vast portions of one of the world's most significant ancient cities. It was only when an archaeologist named Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, visited the site in the 1870s that he noted the strange seals with unknown symbols, recognizing their antiquity but not their full significance. The site, he surmised, was ancient, but its true identity remained elusive. The real breakthrough came decades later, in the early 20th century. In 1921, a new archaeological team led by Dayaram Sahani began systematic excavations at Harappa. The following year, further south, another monumental site was discovered by R.D. Banerjee near the village of Mohenjo-Daro, meaning the Mound of the Dead in Sindhi, a name given by the locals due to the human bones found scattered on its surface. When the artifacts from both sites were compared, the similarities were striking, almost unbelievable. The same distinctive pottery, the same precise brick sizes, the same enigmatic seals. It quickly became clear that these were not isolated settlements, but two major centers of a single vast civilization. Sir John Marshall, then Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, officially announced the discovery of the Indus Valley Civilization to the world in 1924, forever changing our understanding of ancient history and pushing back the timeline of urban development in South Asia by thousands of years.
Let us first turn our attention to Harappa, the city that lent its name to the entire civilization. Though much of its surface material was lost to those early railway builders, subsequent excavations revealed its true grandeur. Harappa was strategically located on the banks of the Ravi River, a tributary of the Indus, placing it at a crossroads of trade routes. The city was organized around a distinct layout: a raised citadel or upper town to the west, and a larger lower town to the east. The citadel, though not a fortress in the military sense, was likely the administrative and perhaps spiritual heart of the city. It stood on a massive artificial mound built up over centuries of occupation. Within its confines, archaeologists found what were initially identified as granaries, large raised brick structures with ventilation ducts, presumed to be for storing grain. However, modern scholarship has re-evaluated this interpretation. While they certainly were important public buildings, their exact function remains debated. Some now suggest they might have been communal work platforms or even barracks. Adjacent to these large structures, outside the citadel walls, but still within a carefully delineated area, were clusters of small uniform dwellings, sometimes referred to as workmen's quarters. These houses, along with the discovery of numerous grinding stones and circular platforms, suggest a highly organized system of labor, possibly involving large-scale food processing or craft production. The symmetry and standardization of these living quarters point towards a society where social distinctions, if they existed, were not overtly expressed through architectural grandeur for a select few, but through a remarkable uniformity in basic living conditions for many. One of the most poignant discoveries at Harappa was Cemetery R37, located south of the citadel. Here, archaeologists uncovered numerous burials, typically in wooden coffins with bodies oriented north-south. The grave goods found alongside the deceased were relatively modest, often consisting of pottery vessels, some ornaments and personal items, reinforcing the idea of a society that did not emphasize elaborate funerary rituals or the accumulation of immense wealth in death, unlike, say, the pharaohs of Egypt. This understated approach to burial speaks volumes about their values, perhaps suggesting a more egalitarian social structure, or at least one that did not equate status with monumental commemoration after death. Now, let us journey further south, to Mohenjo-Daro, often described as the best preserved and largest of the Indus cities, an urban marvel whose sheer scale and sophistication still astound us today. While Harappa was the first to be uncovered, Mohenjo-Daro offers a more complete picture of what a mature Harappan city looked like, largely because it escaped the devastating depredations of the early railway builders. As you approach Mohenjo-Daro, you are immediately struck by its imposing presence. Like Harappa, it is divided into two principal mounds. The western citadel or stupa mount, so named because a Buddhist stupa was built on its highest point much later, and the much larger lower town to the east. The citadel, again, is not a defensive fortress, but a raised platform approximately 12 meters high, constructed of massive mud brick and fired brick platforms. This elevation would have given its occupants a commanding view over the city and provided protection against the annual floods of the Indus River, a constant threat that these engineers meticulously planned for. Within the citadel, we find some of Mohenjo-Daro's most iconic structures. The Great Bath stands as a testament to their engineering prowess and perhaps their ritual life. We will delve deeper into its mysteries in a later chapter, but for now, suffice it to say that it is a remarkably well-preserved, watertight tank built with precisely cut bricks and bitumen mortar, flanked by changing rooms and a sophisticated drainage system. Its existence hints at public ceremonies or ritual purification, a communal space for spiritual cleansing. Nearby, another large structure, often labeled the granary or Great Hall, shares similar characteristics with its Harappan counterpart, a massive brick structure with intricate arrangements of bays and passages. While its original interpretation as a grain storage facility is now debated, its sheer size and central location suggest it was a vital public building, perhaps for civic administration, large-scale processing, or communal gatherings. The mystery surrounding its true purpose only adds to the allure of Mohenjo-Daro. Stepping down from the citadel, we enter the lower town, a sprawling expanse that truly encapsulates the genius of Indus urban planning. This area, where the majority of the population lived and worked, was laid out on an astonishingly precise grid pattern. Imagine wide main streets running north-south and east-west, intersecting at perfect right angles, dividing the city into a series of rectangular blocks. Each block, in turn, contained a labyrinth of narrower lanes and alleyways, providing access to individual homes. This grid plan was not unique to Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa. It was replicated across many smaller Harappan settlements, demonstrating a centralized, overarching vision for urban development.
The houses themselves were equally remarkable, built primarily of fired bricks, often 2 or even 3 stories high. They faced onto the smaller lanes, maintaining privacy from the main thoroughfares. Each house was a self-contained unit, often featuring an internal courtyard, a source of light and air, and rooms arranged around it. Crucially, almost every house had its own private bathing area, meticulously tiled and connected to an incredibly advanced drainage system. This system, a true marvel of ancient engineering, consisted of covered brick drains running along the streets, emptying into larger main drains that eventually carried wastewater out of the city. Manholes at regular intervals allowed for inspection and cleaning. This level of public sanitation, so commonplace in the Indus cities, was virtually unparalleled anywhere else in the ancient world, especially in individual homes. Contemporary cities like those in Mesopotamia, while impressive, often lacked private bathing facilities and relied on open sewers. The Indus people, it seems, placed an extraordinary emphasis on cleanliness and public health, a value reflected in the very fabric of their urban design. The uniformity in brick size across the vast expanse of the Indus civilization is another compelling piece of the puzzle.
From Harappa in the north to Lothal in the south, bricks adhered to a standardized ratio of 4 to 2 to 1. This consistency, maintained over centuries and across thousands of miles, implies a sophisticated system of measurement, quality control, and perhaps a central authority or a widely accepted convention that dictated such precise standards. It suggests a high degree of integration and cooperation across the entire region, far beyond what one might expect from disparate independent city-states. That truly sets the Indus cities apart from their contemporaries in Egypt and Mesopotamia is this very lack of monumental individualism. In the Nile Valley, the towering pyramids screamed of royal power and divine kingship. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats rose to the heavens, dedicated to powerful deities and often controlled by priest kings. But in the Indus cities, there are no grand palaces for kings, no colossal temples dedicated to specific gods, no elaborate, inscribed monuments glorifying rulers or their conquests. The largest structures, as we've discussed, appeared to be public or civic in nature. The Great Bath, the granaries, the meticulously planned public drains. This absence of ostentatious displays of power has led scholars to ponder the nature of Indus society. Was it a more egalitarian civilization? Did they have a ruling class? And if so, how did they exert control without the typical symbols of authority? It suggests a society where collective well-being, civic order, and perhaps communal religious practices took precedence over individual glorification. Their monuments were not to power or piety in the conventional sense, but to the art of living well together in an organized, healthy urban environment. The rapid emergence of such sophisticated urbanism also presents a fascinating challenge. Within a span of a few centuries, from small villages, the Indus people developed cities that were arguably more advanced in terms of urban planning and sanitation than any other civilization of their time. They mastered brick technology, water management, and city layout on a truly grand scale. And they did so not just in one or two isolated centers, but across a vast geographical area, with hundreds of settlements, both large and small, sharing a common material culture, a common script, and a common approach to urban living. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro stand as monumental testaments to this unique urban revolution. They were not merely large towns, they were true cities, with populations likely ranging into the tens of thousands, sustained by an advanced agricultural system, supported by sophisticated trade networks, and organized by principles that prioritized public welfare and orderly living. Their very existence challenges our preconceived notions of what civilization means, especially when we consider the enduring silence they left behind, a silence that has kept their secrets hidden for millennia, patiently waiting for us to unravel them. As we delve deeper into the enigma of the Indus Valley Civilization, having glimpsed their unique approach to urbanism, one seemingly devoid of grand palaces or self-aggrandizing monuments, we are led to explore the very fabric of their cities. Here, in the meticulously laid bricks and the hidden flow of water, lies perhaps the most profound testament to their ingenuity and their values. This is where the silent stones speak loudest, revealing an unparalleled understanding of civic life, engineering, and public welfare. Imagine, if you will, walking through the broad, straight thoroughfares of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa nearly 4.5 millennia ago. What would immediately strike you is not chaotic sprawl, but an astonishing degree of order. These were not cities that grew organically, piecemeal over centuries, but rather they were conceived, planned, and executed with a precision that rivals, and in some respects surpasses, urban planning achievements until much later in human history. This deliberate design, this profound commitment to order, is the hallmark of their engineering marvels.
The very blueprint of an Indus city was a masterpiece of foresight. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro were laid out on a precise grid plan, an innovation that would not become widespread in many other parts of the world until millennia later. The main streets, wide enough to accommodate the bustling activity of a thriving urban center, ran remarkably straight, intersecting at perfect right angles. These major arteries often followed the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, indicating an advanced understanding of surveying and orientation. The city was meticulously divided into large rectangular blocks, each containing a cluster of houses, shops, and courtyards. This standardization of city blocks, consistent even across different major sites, speaks volumes about a highly organized society with a shared vision for urban living. Typically, an Indus city was divided into two distinct sections: a raised citadel or upper town and a lower town. The citadel, often built on substantial platforms of mud brick and earth, was a formidable structure. Unlike the citadels of Mesopotamia, which often house the king's palace or massive temples, the Indus citadels appear to have served a different purpose. While their exact function remains a subject of scholarly debate, they contain large public structures: the Great Bath in Mohenjo-Daro, impressive granaries, and assembly halls. These structures suggest a communal or administrative function, perhaps serving as centers for public rituals, collective storage, or civic governance, rather than individual power. The lower town, sprawling out from the citadel, was primarily residential, a dense network of houses, workshops, and markets, all adhering to the same rigid grid plan. This dual structure, combining elevated public spaces with a carefully planned residential area, reflects a sophisticated approach to managing urban density and community life. But the brilliance of Indus engineering extended far beyond mere layout. It was built, quite literally, from the ground up, with an extraordinary understanding of materials and construction techniques. The humble brick, ubiquitous across the Indus landscape, was elevated to an art form. What sets Indus bricks apart is their astonishing uniformity. Across thousands of miles, from the coast of Baluchistan to the plains of Punjab, archaeological excavations reveal bricks of consistent size, typically in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 4, 1 unit thick, 2 units wide, and 4 units long. This standardization is not merely a curiosity. It implies a highly organized system of production, quality control, and perhaps even a centralized authority, overseeing construction standards across a vast empire, or at least a highly integrated economic and cultural sphere. Imagine the coordination required to maintain such uniformity over such a vast geographical area and for so long. Even more remarkably, most Indus bricks, especially those used for public structures and, crucially, for their sophisticated drainage systems, were kiln-fired. This was a significant technological leap. While many contemporary civilizations relied on sun-dried mud bricks, which were susceptible to erosion and decay, the Indus people understood the transformative power of the kiln. Firing bricks at high temperatures made them incredibly durable, impermeable to water, and resistant to the passage of time and the destructive forces of the monsoon rains. This choice of material speaks volumes about their foresight and their commitment to building structures that would last. They were not building for temporary use, but for generations. The bricks were laid with remarkable skill, often in interlocking patterns, similar to what we now call English bond or Flemish bond, creating incredibly strong and stable walls. Many structures were built on massive, elevated platforms of mud brick and earth, designed to protect the cities from the annual floods of the Indus River, another testament to their acute awareness of their environment and their engineering solutions to its challenges. The true marvel of Indus engineering, however, lies in their mastery of water management. In a land prone to both drought and devastating floods, controlling and distributing water was paramount for survival and prosperity. The Indus people excelled at this, developing systems that were far ahead of their time. Wells were a common feature, not just in public spaces, but within individual homes and courtyards. In cities like Mohenjo-Daro, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of wells, often meticulously constructed with tapered brick linings that reached deep into the earth, providing a consistent supply of clean groundwater. This prevalence of private wells suggests a high standard of living and a deep understanding of hydrological principles. The emphasis on accessible, clean water for every household speaks to a society that prioritized the well-being and hygiene of its citizens, a stark contrast to many other ancient cities where water had to be hauled from distant public sources. Within their homes, too, there was a profound appreciation for personal hygiene. Almost every house excavated in Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa featured a private bathing area, typically a small brick-lined room with a carefully sloped floor. These bathing platforms often had a small drain opening that channeled wastewater out of the house and into the street's public drainage system. This level of domestic sanitation was virtually unprecedented in the ancient world, pointing towards a highly evolved concept of cleanliness and public health. This wasn't a luxury for the elite, it was a standard feature for ordinary citizens, reflecting a widely shared cultural value.
But the true pinnacle of their engineering prowess, the most astonishing feature of Indus urbanism, was their sanitation system. It was, without exaggeration, the most sophisticated and comprehensive drainage system of any ancient civilization. While other early cities might have had rudimentary open ditches or relied on simply dumping waste into the streets or rivers, the Indus people built an intricate, enclosed network of drains that ran beneath the major streets, carrying wastewater away from the residential areas. Imagine, beneath those wide, orderly streets, a hidden world of engineering precision. The main street drains were typically constructed of kiln-fired bricks, meticulously laid, and often sealed with a waterproof lining, possibly bitumen or lime plaster, to prevent leakage. These drains were covered with brick slabs, sometimes even large stone lids, ensuring that the waste was out of sight and contained, preventing the spread of disease and maintaining a clean urban environment. This wasn't merely practical, it was a profound act of public health. The very existence of such an elaborate system speaks volumes about their understanding of hygiene and its direct link to communal well-being. The engineering required to construct these drains was exceptional. They were built with a precise, slight gradient, ensuring a continuous, gentle flow of wastewater away from the houses and out of the city. This required not only sophisticated surveying techniques, but also a deep understanding of hydraulics. Furthermore, the drains were equipped with periodic manholes or inspection holes, removable brick covers, allowing for regular cleaning and maintenance. This foresight, the planning for ongoing upkeep, is perhaps as impressive as the initial construction itself, indicating a long-term vision for city management. At the household level, every bathing area, and in many cases what appear to be rudimentary latrines, were connected to the main street drains by smaller ceramic pipes or brick channels. This meant that wastewater from virtually every home was efficiently and hygienically removed from the living quarters. Outside the city walls, these major drains would discharge their contents, often into larger collection pits or sumps, which served as sedimentation tanks. Some scholars speculate that the nutrient-rich effluent from these pits might have even been used for agricultural purposes, closing a remarkable cycle of urban waste management. The implications of such an advanced sanitation system are vast. It points to a society that placed an incredibly high value on public health and cleanliness. It suggests a strong, perhaps centralized civic administration, capable of planning, implementing, and maintaining such large-scale public works. It implies a significant investment of resources, labor, and technical expertise. This wasn't a patchwork solution. It was an integrated, comprehensive system designed for the benefit of the entire community. Compared to the often filthy conditions of contemporary cities in Mesopotamia or Egypt, where open sewers were common and disease rampant, the Indus cities were beacons of public health and civic order. This commitment to hygiene likely contributed to the longevity and prosperity of their urban centers. The sheer scale and sophistication of these engineering marvels, the grid-planned cities, the standardized kiln-fired bricks, the ubiquitous wells, and above all, the unparalleled underground drainage and sanitation systems, paint a picture of a civilization that was, in many ways, ahead of its time. They demonstrate not only remarkable technical skill, but also a profound understanding of the principles of urban living, public health, and communal welfare. Their monuments were not individualistic declarations of power, but rather collective testaments to an art of living well together in an organized and healthy urban environment. These silent cities, with their meticulously planned streets and hidden networks of drains, are perhaps the most eloquent witnesses to the genius and values of the enigmatic Indus people, speaking volumes about their pragmatic approach to life and their enduring legacy as pioneers of urbanism. The meticulous planning, the sophisticated drainage, the very bricks of their cities, they speak volumes about a civilization that valued order, health, and communal well-being. But as we move from the physical structures to the elusive people who built them, we encounter perhaps the greatest enigma of the Indus Valley Civilization, the nature of their society itself. Unlike nearly every other major ancient civilization, the Indus cities present a picture of a people seemingly without kings, without grand temples, and without visible armies. This absence of the typical hallmarks of power, so pervasive elsewhere, makes them truly an enigmatic people. Consider for a moment their contemporaries. In Egypt, colossal pyramids rose from the desert sands, eternal monuments to the pharaohs who were revered as living gods. Their elaborate tombs were filled with treasures designed to accompany the divine rulers into the afterlife, proclaiming their absolute authority and immense wealth. Across Mesopotamia, ziggurats, towering step pyramids, dominated cityscapes dedicated to powerful deities and serving as centers of immense priestly and political power. Palaces of kings, adorned with scenes of conquest and tribute, stood as a clear statement of a hierarchical, often autocratic rule. Warfare was a constant drumbeat, with armies clashing and fortified cities rising to defend against invaders.
Now, turn your gaze back to the Indus. What do we see? Not pyramids, but carefully constructed reservoirs. Not grand temples, but public baths. Not monumental palaces, but remarkably uniform residential quarters. Where are the massive statues of rulers demanding obeisance? Where are the elaborate royal burial sites brimming with gold and precious stones? Where are the frescoes depicting triumphant battles and subjugated foes? The answer, time and again, is that they simply are not there. This startling absence is not merely a lack of archaeological finds. It is a profound silence that speaks volumes, challenging our very assumptions about how complex societies develop and sustain themselves. The uniformity of the Indus cities spread across an astonishingly vast geographical area, from the coast of Balochistan to the plains of Uttar Pradesh and from Afghanistan to Gujarat, is one of their most striking features. The same standardized kiln-fired bricks in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 4 are found in virtually every major site. The same system of weights, based on a binary progression for smaller weights and a decimal system for larger ones, was used throughout the civilization. Pottery styles, city planning principles, and even the seals with their mysterious script exhibit remarkable consistency over centuries. Such widespread standardization hints at a highly integrated cultural sphere, perhaps even a centralized authority, yet this authority left no personalized monuments. So, if not kings or emperors, who governed these sprawling, sophisticated urban centers? What kind of social glue held this vast civilization together for nearly a millennium? Several theories have emerged, each attempting to unravel this fascinating puzzle. One prominent idea suggests a form of collective governance, perhaps a council of elders or a body of leading citizens. The emphasis on public works, like the drainage systems and granaries, which benefited the entire community rather than just an elite, lends credence to this idea. Such works would require significant coordination, planning, and resource allocation, but they don't necessarily demand a single autocratic leader. Imagine a city where decisions were made for the common good, not by a towering figure on a throne, but by a pragmatic group focused on the efficient functioning of urban life. Another theory points towards a merchant oligarchy. The Indus civilization was a bustling hub of trade, both within its vast territory and with distant lands like Mesopotamia and Oman. The standardized weights and measures would have been crucial for fair commerce, and the focus on well-organized cities with accessible waterways would have greatly facilitated trade. Perhaps the wealthiest and most influential merchants, whose fortunes were tied to the prosperity of the cities and the smooth flow of goods, formed the ruling class. Their power would have been economic, expressed through the efficient management of urban infrastructure rather than through military might or religious display. This would explain the absence of grand palaces and the presence of such robust civic services, features designed to support a thriving commercial enterprise. A third possibility, though less supported by direct evidence, is a form of priestly rule, a theocracy perhaps, but one that lacked the monumental temple structures seen elsewhere. The famous priest-king statue, a steatite bust found at Mohenjo-Daro, is often invoked in this context. With his serene expression, neatly trimmed beard, and trefoil-patterned robe, he certainly possesses an air of dignity and authority. But is he a king? A priest? A revered ancestor? We simply do not know. He is one unique artifact, not part of a gallery of royal portraits, and no corresponding temple complexes have been found where such a figure might have held sway. If a priestly class existed, their power appears to have been more diffused, perhaps guiding ritual life and communal values rather than exercising overt political control from a grand temple palace. The sanctity of water suggested by the Great Bath and the prevalence of certain animal and goddess figurines might point to a spiritual foundation for their society, but one not expressed through monumental architecture. Beyond the question of governance, the Indus cities also offer a unique perspective on social stratification. While there is certainly differences in house sizes, with some structures being larger and more elaborate than others, there is a striking lack of stark social division. Unlike cities in other ancient civilizations, where clear distinctions between opulent elite quarters and impoverished slums were common, the Indus cities appeared to have been remarkably egalitarian in their layout. Most houses, regardless of size, shared common features, private wells, bathing areas, and connections to the sophisticated drainage system. This suggests a society where basic amenities and public health were available to a wide cross-section of the population, rather than being exclusive privileges of the elite. Of course, stratification did exist. We find evidence of specialized crafts, indicating distinct occupational groups: potters, brickmakers, jewelers, metallurgists, and weavers. The presence of workshops and kilns within certain areas of the cities point to organized production. Artisans skilled in carnelian bead making, seal carving, and copper metallurgy undoubtedly held a respected place in society.
Different areas within the cities, particularly the raised citadel mounds, likely served administrative or communal functions, perhaps housing public buildings, granaries, or meeting halls, rather than being exclusively royal residences.
The relative scarcity of weaponry in archaeological digs is another fascinating aspect of the Indus civilization. Compared to Mesopotamia, where depictions of warriors and caches of weapons are abundant, the Indus sites yield surprisingly few swords, spears, or elaborate defensive structures. The cities were walled, but these walls appear to have been more for flood protection or civic demarcation than for military defense. This suggests a society that was either remarkably peaceful or one that had developed effective mechanisms for conflict resolution that did not rely on large-scale warfare. Perhaps their economic prosperity and shared cultural values minimized internal strife, and their geographic isolation provided some protection from external threats. This lack of overt military display further reinforces the image of a pragmatic, trade-focused, and perhaps even pacific civilization. Daily life in these silent cities appears to have revolved around domesticity and community. Houses were typically built around a central courtyard, providing light, ventilation, and a private space for family activities. Many homes had their own wells, offering direct access to clean water, a luxury in the ancient world. The presence of well-preserved toys, miniature carts, animal figurines, and terracotta whistles suggests that children were cherished and that a certain level of comfort and leisure existed within the household. The attention to sanitation, the access to water, and the relatively uniform housing indicate a society where the quality of everyday life for its citizens was a priority. The spiritual and ritual life of the Indus people, in the absence of monumental temples, is largely inferred from smaller artifacts. Terracotta figurines of what are often interpreted as mother goddesses are common, perhaps indicating a reverence for fertility and the divine feminine. Small male figures, some in yogic postures, have led to speculation about a proto-Shiva figure, a lord of animals or a great yogi. The iconic unicorn motif on many seals, often depicted before a stand or an altar, suggests a significant symbolic or religious role for this mythical creature, though its exact meaning remains elusive. Animal worship, particularly of bulls, also seems to have been prevalent. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro stands as the most prominent example of a communal ritual space. Its meticulous construction and the presence of what might be changing rooms suggests a focus on ritual purification through water, a practice that resonates with later traditions in the Indian subcontinent. While not a temple in the traditional sense, it served a profound spiritual purpose, emphasizing communal cleansing and perhaps collective rites. These findings collectively paint a picture of a spiritual life deeply intertwined with nature, fertility, and the purity of water, expressed through personal devotion, small-scale rituals, and communal bathing, rather than through large-scale congregational worship in monumental temples. Ultimately, the enigmatic nature of the Indus people is what continues to captivate archaeologists and historians. They challenge our conventional understanding of ancient civilizations, demonstrating that complex urban societies could thrive for centuries without the visible signs of autocratic rule, pervasive warfare, or monumental religious structures. Their monuments were not individualistic declarations of power, but rather collective testaments to an art of living well together in an organized and healthy urban environment. Their enduring legacy lies not in the pronouncements of kings etched in stone, but in the silent testament of meticulously planned streets, hidden networks of drains, and the subtle clues of a society that prioritized civic order, trade, and perhaps a form of communal harmony above all else. They are a profound reminder that history offers diverse paths to civilization, and some of the most remarkable stories are whispered not in the grand halls of power, but in the quiet, orderly streets of forgotten cities. As we delve deeper into the quiet testament of the Indus Valley people, a profound question inevitably arises. If their monuments were not grand declarations of power, but rather the meticulous, understated design of their cities and their collective harmony, how did they communicate the more intricate aspects of their lives? How did they record their thoughts, their beliefs, their very names? This brings us to perhaps the most enduring and captivating enigma of the Indus civilization, their script. The unbroken code, as it is often called, is a silent language, a locked door, that still holds the deepest secrets of this ancient people. Imagine for a moment the thrill of holding a key that unlocks a forgotten language. For ancient Egypt, it was the Rosetta Stone, a tablet inscribed with the same decree in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Ancient Greek. For Mesopotamian cuneiform, patient scholars pieced together bilingual texts and long-lost grammar. But for the Indus Valley, no such key has yet emerged. The script, composed of hundreds of distinctive symbols, remains a tantalizing mystery, a window into a lost world that we can glimpse but not yet truly comprehend.
These enigmatic symbols are found on a variety of objects, but most prominently on small, square or rectangular seals, often no larger than a thumbprint. These seals, typically carved from steatite, a soft stone that hardens when heated, depict a remarkable array of animals: the majestic unicorn-like bull, the powerful short-horned bull, elephants, tigers, and even rhinoceroses, often accompanied by lines of script above or below the animal motif. Beyond seals, the script also appears on pottery fragments, small copper tablets, ivory rods, and tiny clay tablets, some of which bear only script without accompanying images. The very ubiquity of these inscriptions across a vast geographical area, from Afghanistan to Gujarat, suggests that writing played a significant, if still unknown, role in their daily lives, administration, and possibly their spiritual practices. When we examine the characteristics of the Indus script, several fascinating features emerge. Scholars have identified somewhere between 400 and 600 distinct signs, depending on how variations are categorized. This number is far too large for an alphabet, which typically has around 20 to 30 signs, and too small for a purely logographic system, where each word has a unique symbol, such as early Chinese, which has thousands. Instead, the Indus script is widely believed to be a logographic, syllabic system, meaning that some signs represent entire words or concepts, while others represent phonetic syllables. This hybrid nature is common in many ancient writing systems, but it also adds to the complexity of decipherment. Another crucial characteristic is the direction of writing. By observing the way signs are often squished or compressed toward the left end of an inscription, a phenomenon known as ligature or congestion, scholars have largely concluded that the script was typically written from right to left. Imagine writing on a limited space and having to cram the last few letters together. This is precisely what we see in many Indus inscriptions. However, there are also instances of what is called booster photon, where the direction alternates from line to line, much like an ox plowing a field, going one way and then turning around. This flexibility, while intriguing, doesn't simplify the decipherment process. The most significant hurdle, however, lies in the brevity of the inscriptions. The vast majority of Indus texts are incredibly short, often consisting of just 5 or 6 signs. The longest known inscription, found on a tablet, contains only 26 signs. This extreme brevity is a major impediment. Imagine trying to understand the meaning of a language if you only ever saw fragments of sentences, never a full paragraph, let alone a chapter or a book. Without longer texts, it becomes incredibly difficult to discern grammatical structures, recurring phrases, or the context necessary to assign meaning to individual signs. It's like trying to solve a colossal jigsaw puzzle when you only have a handful of pieces and no picture on the box to guide you.
The absence of a bilingual text is without a doubt the greatest single obstacle to decipherment. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which provided the same text in a known language and the unknown hieroglyphic script, we have no such parallel for the Indus script. Every attempt at decipherment, therefore, begins in a void, without a firm anchor. Scholars cannot simply read the signs by comparing them to a known translation. This means that any proposed decipherment must rely entirely on internal evidence, the patterns within the script itself, and external clues, such as the images accompanying the text or comparisons to later languages, which are often tenuous. Furthermore, we simply do not know what language the Indus script encodes. This is a critical point. Is it an early form of a language still spoken today, or is it an isolated, extinct language with no modern descendants? This question is central to the debate. If we could identify the language family, it would provide phonetic clues, grammatical structures, and vocabulary parallels that could unlock the script. But as of now, this remains a profound unknown. This lack of a known linguistic connection makes the task exponentially harder than, say, deciphering Linear B, which was ultimately found to be an early form of Greek. There is also an ongoing academic debate, albeit a minority view, regarding whether the Indus script is a true language in the linguistic sense or merely a system of non-linguistic symbols. Proponents of the latter argue that the short length of inscriptions, the lack of evidence for linguistic complexity, and the possibility that they are simply iconic symbols for seals, like company logos or family crests, mean it's not a full writing system. However, the majority of scholars, observing the number of distinct signs, the consistent patterns of their appearance, and their distribution, lean towards the conclusion that it is indeed a form of writing encoding a language, even if we cannot read it yet. The systematic nature of the signs strongly suggests a communicative intent that goes beyond simple pictorial representation. Despite these formidable challenges, the unwearying search to break the code has continued for over a century. Early pioneers, often working with limited resources and knowledge, made speculative attempts. But it was with the advent of more rigorous archaeological methods and later computational power that serious scholarly efforts gained traction. These enigmatic symbols are found on a variety of objects, but most prominently on small, square or rectangular seals, often no larger than a thumbprint. These seals, typically carved from steatite, a soft stone that hardens when heated, depict a remarkable array of animals: the majestic unicorn-like bull, the powerful short-horned bull, elephants, tigers, and even rhinoceroses, often accompanied by lines of script above or below the animal motif. Beyond seals, the script also appears on pottery fragments, small copper tablets, ivory rods, and tiny clay tablets, some of which bear only script without accompanying images. The very ubiquity of these inscriptions across a vast geographical area, from Afghanistan to Gujarat, suggests that writing played a significant, if still unknown, role in their daily lives, administration, and possibly their spiritual practices. When we examine the characteristics of the Indus script, several fascinating features emerge. Scholars have identified somewhere between 400 and 600 distinct signs, depending on how variations are categorized. This number is far too large for an alphabet, which typically has around 20 to 30 signs, and too small for a purely logographic system, where each word has a unique symbol, such as early Chinese, which has thousands. Instead, the Indus script is widely believed to be a logographic, syllabic system, meaning that some signs represent entire words or concepts, while others represent phonetic syllables. This hybrid nature is common in many ancient writing systems, but it also adds to the complexity of decipherment. Another crucial characteristic is the direction of writing. By observing the way signs are often squished or compressed toward the left end of an inscription, a phenomenon known as ligature or congestion, scholars have largely concluded that the script was typically written from right to left. Imagine writing on a limited space and having to cram the last few letters together. This is precisely what we see in many Indus inscriptions. However, there are also instances of what is called booster photon, where the direction alternates from line to line, much like an ox plowing a field, going one way and then turning around. This flexibility, while intriguing, doesn't simplify the decipherment process. The most significant hurdle, however, lies in the brevity of the inscriptions. The vast majority of Indus texts are incredibly short, often consisting of just 5 or 6 signs. The longest known inscription, found on a tablet, contains only 26 signs. This extreme brevity is a major impediment. Imagine trying to understand the meaning of a language if you only ever saw fragments of sentences, never a full paragraph, let alone a chapter or a book. Without longer texts, it becomes incredibly difficult to discern grammatical structures, recurring phrases, or the context necessary to assign meaning to individual signs. It's like trying to solve a colossal jigsaw puzzle when you only have a handful of pieces and no picture on the box to guide you. The absence of a bilingual text is without a doubt the greatest single obstacle to decipherment. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which provided the same text in a known language and the unknown hieroglyphic script, we have no such parallel for the Indus script. Every attempt at decipherment, therefore, begins in a void, without a firm anchor. Scholars cannot simply read the signs by comparing them to a known translation. This means that any proposed decipherment must rely entirely on internal evidence, the patterns within the script itself, and external clues, such as the images accompanying the text or comparisons to later languages, which are often tenuous. Furthermore, we simply do not know what language the Indus script encodes. This is a critical point. Is it an early form of a language still spoken today, or is it an isolated, extinct language with no modern descendants? This question is central to the debate. If we could identify the language family, it would provide phonetic clues, grammatical structures, and vocabulary parallels that could unlock the script. But as of now, this remains a profound unknown. This lack of a known linguistic connection makes the task exponentially harder than, say, deciphering Linear B, which was ultimately found to be an early form of Greek. There is also an ongoing academic debate, albeit a minority view, regarding whether the Indus script is a true language in the linguistic sense or merely a system of non-linguistic symbols. Proponents of the latter argue that the short length of inscriptions, the lack of evidence for linguistic complexity, and the possibility that they are simply iconic symbols for seals, like company logos or family crests, mean it's not a full writing system. However, the majority of scholars, observing the number of distinct signs, the consistent patterns of their appearance, and their distribution, lean towards the conclusion that it is indeed a form of writing encoding a language, even if we cannot read it yet. The systematic nature of the signs strongly suggests a communicative intent that goes beyond simple pictorial representation. Despite these formidable challenges, the unwearying search to break the code has continued for over a century. Early pioneers, often working with limited resources and knowledge, made speculative attempts. But it was with the advent of more rigorous archaeological methods and later computational power that serious scholarly efforts gained traction.
The presence of writing also indicates a degree of literacy, at least among certain segments of the population. While we don't know if widespread literacy existed, the presence of scribes, administrators, or merchants capable of creating and understanding these marks speaks volumes about the complexity and organization of their society. It is a testament to human ingenuity that such a sophisticated system of writing was developed and maintained for centuries. The unbroken code of the Indus Valley remains one of archaeology's greatest and most alluring challenges. Each new excavation, each newly discovered seal or inscribed shard offers a sliver of hope that the key to this ancient mystery might one day be found. Perhaps a large, multilingual inscription lies buried, waiting to be unearthed, or perhaps advances in computational linguistics will provide an unprecedented breakthrough.
Until then, the Indus script stands as a powerful reminder that some of history's most profound secrets still lie hidden, waiting for the right moment and the right minds to unravel their silence. It is a silent whisper from the past, reminding us of the rich, untold stories of a civilization that prioritized civic order, trade, and perhaps a unique form of communal harmony above all else. The very mention of the Indus Valley Civilization often conjures images of orderly streets and impressive drainage systems, a testament to their advanced urban planning. But among these meticulous ruins, one structure stands out not just for its monumental size, but for the profound mystery surrounding its purpose: the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro. It is a structure that speaks less of daily pragmatism and more of profound spiritual or communal life. Imagine, if you will, the bustling cityscape of Mohenjo-Daro in its prime, nearly 5,000 years ago. As you walk through its carefully laid out streets, you come upon a raised area, a citadel, which is home to some of the city's most significant public buildings. Here, nestled within this complex, is the Great Bath. It is an extraordinary feat of ancient engineering, particularly for its time. Measuring approximately 12 meters long, 7 meters wide, and with a maximum depth of 2.4 meters, it is considered the earliest public water tank of the ancient world. The construction of the Great Bath itself is a marvel, showcasing the Harappan people's mastery over brickwork and their understanding of waterproofing. Its floor and walls were built with finely fitted bricks set on edge with gypsum mortar, and a thick layer of natural bitumen was used to create a watertight seal. This ingenious use of bitumen, a natural tar, prevented water from seeping out, making it one of the earliest known examples of waterproofing in the world. Imagine the dedication and skill required to achieve such a watertight structure thousands of years ago, without the benefit of modern materials or techniques. Access to this grand pool was provided by two wide staircases, one leading down from the north and another from the south. Along the lower ends of these stairs, a ledge extended across the entire width of the bath, allowing people to descend without immediately stepping into the deeper water. Surrounding the bath were a series of rooms, some of which may have served as changing areas or places for preparatory rituals. Water for the bath was likely supplied by a large well located in an adjacent room, and an outlet in one corner of the bath efficiently drained the used water into the city's sophisticated sewage system. This elaborate water management system, combined with the presence of private bathrooms in most Indus Valley homes, truly underscores the civilization's remarkable emphasis on cleanliness and sanitation. But what was the purpose of such a grand and meticulously constructed structure? While some early theories suggested it might have been a public swimming pool or a royal bathing area, the prevailing belief among archaeologists and historians is that the Great Bath was primarily used for ritualistic or religious purposes. The sheer scale and communal nature of the structure, especially given its central location within the citadel, strongly suggest a symbolic significance beyond mere hygiene. In a civilization that, unlike its Mesopotamian and Egyptian contemporaries, seems to have lacked monumental temples or palaces, the Great Bath might have served as a focal point for communal and spiritual activities. Water, as we know, holds profound spiritual importance in many cultures, often symbolizing purification, renewal, and fertility. For the Indus Valley people, it is highly probable that water was viewed as a purifying element, and bathing in the Great Bath might have been part of significant religious ceremonies or social rites. Think of the gatherings that might have taken place here, perhaps on specific calendaric dates or during times of communal significance. The citizens of Mohenjo-Daro would assemble. The air might have been thick with anticipation, the sounds of distant chatter echoing against the brick walls as individuals prepared themselves for a sacred dip. The act of entering the cool water, allowing it to cleanse not just the body but also the spirit, could have been a powerful unifying experience for the community. It was not simply a place to get clean, but a space for spiritual cleansing and well-being.
This emphasis on ritual purification through water seems to have a lasting legacy in later Indian traditions, where water continues to be a key element in many religious rites and customs, particularly the practice of ritual bathing. While direct links are difficult to establish without deciphered texts, the echoes are undeniable. The idea of sacred tanks and temple ponds in later Hindu architecture shares a striking similarity with the function theorized for the Great Bath. Beyond the Great Bath, other archaeological findings offer glimpses into the religious and ritual life of the Indus Valley people. The absence of grand temples has led scholars to speculate that their religious practices might have been decentralized, perhaps focused on domestic rituals or open-air ceremonies. However, various artifacts provide tantalizing clues. Consider the numerous terracotta figurines discovered at Indus sites. Among these, the most common are small female figures, often interpreted as representations of a mother goddess. These figurines, with their prominent features, are believed to symbolize fertility and abundance, reflecting a deep connection to nature's life-giving aspects. The worship of a fertility deity was widespread across ancient civilizations, from the Mediterranean to Western Asia, suggesting a shared human preoccupation with the mysteries of creation and sustenance. Then there are the seals, those remarkable miniature artworks that feature intricate carvings. Many seals depict various animals which are believed to have held spiritual significance and were revered by the Indus people. Among the most discussed is the Pashupati seal, which portrays a figure in a seated yogic posture, surrounded by animals such as a tiger, an elephant, a rhinoceros, and a water buffalo. This figure is often interpreted as an early form of a great male god, sometimes linked to Proto-Shiva, a deity associated with animals and meditation in later Hinduism. The presence of horns or a horned headdress on the figure further adds to the enigmatic quality of this representation. While interpretations vary, the seal undeniably suggests a complex belief system involving deities and the natural world. Other seals and artifacts hint at the veneration of trees, particularly the peepal tree, which is considered sacred in many South Asian traditions even today. The depiction of a deity amidst the branches of a peepal tree with a devotee worshipping them underscores the deep reverence for nature that seems to have characterized their spirituality. The Naga cult, or serpent worship, also appears to have been prevalent, with seals and impressions featuring serpents, some even alongside major gods, or engaged in conflict with other animals. The famed priest-king statue, a small but exquisitely carved statite sculpture found at Mohenjo-Daro, offers another fascinating, albeit ambiguous piece of the puzzle. This bearded male figure, adorned with a fillet around his head and a patterned cloak draped over his shoulder, is one of the most iconic artifacts from the Indus Valley Civilization. While the name Priest King is speculative, indicating a figure of high status, it's not definitively known whether he was a ruler, a religious leader, or perhaps even a deity. The intricate craftsmanship, however, speaks volumes about the Harappans' artistic abilities and offers clues about their attire and potentially their religious beliefs. The mystery surrounding his exact identity only deepens the allure of this enigmatic figure. What these scattered pieces of evidence, the Great Bath, the Mother Goddess figurines, the Pashupati seal, the reverence for nature, and the Priest King, collectively tell us is that the Indus Valley people possessed a rich and multifaceted spiritual life. It was a belief system deeply intertwined with the natural world, emphasizing purity, fertility, and perhaps a form of communal harmony. While we may not have their sacred texts or explicit accounts of their rituals, the archaeological remains provide a silent yet powerful narrative of their inner world. The Great Bath in particular stands as a monumental testament to their profound connection with water and its role in their collective consciousness, a silent echo of a people who understood the sacredness of cleansing and renewal. It reminds us that even without deciphered words, the architecture and artifacts of a civilization can speak volumes about its deepest values and beliefs. And so, having journeyed into the silent sacred spaces of the Indus people, understanding their profound connection to water and the spiritual tapestry they wove, we now turn our gaze outward, beyond the meticulously planned walls of their cities. We explore how, These seemingly isolated urban centers were, in fact, vibrant nodes in a vast and intricate network of trade, their echoes reaching across continents and connecting them to the bustling civilizations of the ancient world. The very essence of their prosperity, the diversity of materials found within their cities, speaks volumes of a people who were master navigators, both of their inner spiritual lives and the expansive currents of commerce. For a civilization to thrive on the scale of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, a sophisticated system of resource acquisition and distribution was not merely beneficial but absolutely essential. The Indus Valley, fertile as it was for agriculture, lacked many vital raw materials. There was no local supply of precious metals like gold or silver, nor abundant sources of copper or tin, crucial for the Bronze Age technologies they employed. The vibrant carnelian and lapis lazuli used in their exquisite beads did not originate within their immediate territories. This inherent need for exchange propelled the Indus people into a dynamic relationship with distant lands, forging connections that stretched from the rugged mountains of Afghanistan to the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia.
Their trade routes were multifaceted, traversing both arduous land paths and the vast, often unforgiving, expanse of the sea. Along the dusty, ancient land routes, goods likely moved by the sturdy backs of oxen, donkeys, or perhaps even camels, tracing paths that skirted the formidable Hindu Kush mountains and wound through the Baluchi hills. These overland arteries connected the Indus cities to resource-rich regions like modern-day Afghanistan, a primary source of the coveted blue lapis lazuli from the mines of Badakhshan. Turquoise, too, likely arrived from Iranian plateaus along these same routes, alongside silver and tin, essential for bronze metallurgy. Imagine the caravans, slow-moving but persistent, laden with precious stones, rare metals, and perhaps even timber from the northern forests, making their arduous journey into the heart of the Indus Valley. These routes were not just conduits for goods, they were pathways for ideas, for stories, and for the subtle intermingling of cultures, even if the Indus civilization largely maintained its unique character. But it was the sea, vast and boundless, that truly connected the Indus Valley to the global economy of the 3rd millennium BCE. The Harappans were accomplished mariners, their coastal settlements and port cities like the famous Lothal suggesting a deep familiarity with maritime travel. While the full extent of Lothal's dockyard remains a subject of debate among archaeologists, its proximity to the Gulf of Combat and the discovery of a large basin with an inlet channel strongly point to its role as a significant maritime hub. From ports along the Indus Delta and the Gujarat coast, stout, flat-bottomed boats, possibly with sails, would have ventured out into the Arabian Sea, hugging the coastline towards the Persian Gulf. These vessels, though perhaps not as large as later ships, were capable of transporting substantial cargoes of grain, finished goods, and other commodities that fueled the prosperity of their distant trading partners. What then flowed along these ancient arteries of commerce? The Indus cities were, first and foremost, exporters of their agricultural surplus, vast quantities of wheat and barley grown in the fertile plains. They also likely traded in high-quality timber from the Himalayan foothills, and raw cotton, a crop for which the Indus Valley is among the earliest known cultivators. But perhaps their most distinctive exports were their meticulously crafted finished goods. The exquisite carnelian beads, often long, etched, and highly polished, were prized possessions in distant Mesopotamia, their vibrant red hues and intricate designs, a testament to Harappan artistry. Shell objects, particularly bangles and other ornaments, were also in demand, as were beautifully carved steatite and faience ornaments. And of course, the iconic Indus seals with their enigmatic script and captivating animal motifs served a vital role in this mercantile exchange, acting as a kind of ancient bill of lading or proof of origin. They were the stamps of authenticity in a world
without barcodes. In return, the Indus Valley imported a diverse array of materials crucial for their sophisticated urban life and flourishing craftsmanship. Copper, vital for tools, weapons, and ornaments, arrived from various sources, including the rich mines of present-day Rajasthan in India, as well as from Oman, then known as Magan in Mesopotamian texts. Tin, a scarcer but equally crucial component for making bronze, journeyed from Afghanistan or Central Asia. Gold, glistening and precious, flowed from the Kolar gold fields in southern India and perhaps from more distant sources. Silver, too, made its way into the Indus cities, often from distant mines in Afghanistan or Iran. Beyond metals, precious stones continued to be a significant import. The deep blue lapis lazuli from Badakhshan, Afghanistan, and various types of chalcedony, agate, and jasper from other regions. These raw materials, transformed by the skilled hands of Harappan artisans, became the beautiful artifacts we unearth today, telling a silent story of global interconnection. The most compelling evidence for this extensive trade comes from the archaeological record itself, specifically the fascinating discovery of Indus Valley seals and pottery far beyond the confines of the subcontinent. Perhaps the most significant finds are the numerous Indus seals unearthed in major Mesopotamian cities such as Kish, and Lagash, as well as in Susa in ancient Elam, located in what is now Iran. These distinctive square or rectangular steatite seals, typically depicting animals like unicorns, humped bulls, and elephants, alongside undeciphered Indus script, stand out unmistakably amidst the Mesopotamian artifacts. Their presence in these distant lands strongly suggests that they accompanied consignments of goods from the Indus Valley, serving as merchant identifying marks or even as a form of currency or guarantee. Imagine a merchant in receiving a shipment of cotton or carnelian beads, their authenticity verified by the familiar yet mysterious stamp of an Indus seal. The sheer volume and widespread distribution of these seals underscore the regularity and importance of this trade.
Conversely, while rarer, Mesopotamian artifacts have also been found within Indus Valley sites, further solidifying the evidence of direct contact. A few cylinder seals, a form of seal common in Mesopotamia but largely absent in the Indus Valley, have been discovered in cities like Mohenjo-Daro, suggesting the presence of foreign merchants or the import of prestige items. Certain types of beads or pottery forms occasionally show Mesopotamian influence, though the Indus civilization largely maintained its unique artistic and technological trajectory, absorbing elements rather than being dominated by them. Furthermore, the analysis of raw materials found in Harappan workshops and homes provides irrefutable proof of long-distance trade. The presence of lapis lazuli in Mohenjo-Daro, chemically traced back to the mines of Badakhshan, for example, is a direct testament to these far-reaching connections. The copper in their tools often contains trace elements consistent with sources in Oman or Rajasthan, confirming the diverse origins of their metallic wealth. Central to this vast mercantile network were key intermediaries and trading partners, most notably the civilizations of Mesopotamia and the strategically located islands and coastal regions of the Persian Gulf. Ancient Mesopotamian texts provide invaluable insights referring to trading lands known as Dilmun, Magan, and Meluha. While their exact geographical locations were debated for centuries, archaeological consensus now largely identifies Dilmun with modern-day Bahrain and the adjacent Arabian coast, Magan with present-day Oman and the United Arab Emirates, and Meluha with the Indus Valley Civilization itself. Dilmun, situated strategically in the Persian Gulf, served as a crucial entrepot,
a bustling transit point where goods from Meluha were offloaded and exchanged for products destined for Mesopotamia. It was a thriving hub known for its date palm cultivation and pearl fishing, but its primary significance lay in its role as a middleman in the long-distance trade. Ships from the Indus Valley would sail to Dilmun, where their cargo would be transferred to smaller vessels or overland caravans heading for the great cities of Sumer and Akkad. The texts speak of Dilmun boats and describe its prosperity as a result of this trade. Archaeological excavations in Bahrain have indeed revealed evidence of extensive trade with both the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia, including numerous Indus seals and weights, confirming its pivotal role. Magan, identified with the region of Oman, was primarily a source of copper. Mesopotamian texts frequently mention the arrival of copper ships from Magan, and archaeological evidence in Oman has revealed extensive ancient copper mining and smelting sites, along with pottery and other artifacts that show connections with both Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. It is clear that the Indus people, like their Mesopotamian counterparts, relied on Magan for a significant portion of their copper supply, transporting it across the Arabian Sea. But it was Meluha, the distant land from which ships of Meluha arrived directly in Mesopotamian ports, that truly captures the imagination. Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets from the Akkadian period onwards speak of exotic goods coming from Meluha: carnelian, lapis lazuli, ivory, gold, and even exotic birds and animals like peacocks and monkeys, suggesting a land of immense wealth and natural wonders. While some of these materials, like lapis, were likely re-exported from Meluha after arriving there from Afghanistan, others, such as carnelian, ivory, and certain types of gold, were indigenous to or processed within the Indus Valley. The direct mention of Meluha ships implies that, at least for a period, there was direct sea trade between the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia, bypassing the Dilmun intermediaries, a testament to the maritime prowess of the Harappans. This intricate web of international trade was not merely about the exchange of goods. It was a powerful engine driving the economic prosperity and organization of the Indus cities. The demand for raw materials from distant lands fostered a high degree of specialization within Harappan society. Artisans dedicated to bead-making, shell-working, metallurgy, and pottery thrived, their skills honed to produce goods of exceptional quality for both domestic consumption and lucrative export. The very existence of standardized weights and measures across the vast Indus realm, as evidenced by the cubical chert weights found at virtually every major site, speaks to a sophisticated system designed to facilitate fair and consistent exchange, not just within their own cities, but also with their external trading partners. These weights, remarkably precise and consistent, underpin the economic integrity of their society and underscore the level of organization required for such extensive trade. While the primary nature of these interactions was economic, trade inevitably led to a degree of cultural exchange, however subtle. Ideas, artistic motifs, and perhaps even snippets of language would have traversed these routes alongside the material goods. However, unlike some other ancient civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization appears to have absorbed these external influences without fundamentally altering its own unique cultural identity. Their cities remained distinct, their script undeciphered by comparison to the cuneiform, and their religious iconography largely indigenous. This suggests a civilization confident in its own form, discerning in its adoption of foreign elements.
And so, as we look at the silent cities of the Indus Valley, we must envision them not as isolated entities, but as bustling hubs. their markets filled with the chatter of merchants, their workshops humming with activity, and their ports alive with the coming and going of ships. The echoes of trade, carried across mountains and seas, speak of a civilization deeply integrated into the ancient world's global economy, a testament to their ingenuity, their organizational skills, and their remarkable ability to connect with distant peoples. This vast network of exchange was not just a means to acquire resources, it was a fundamental pillar of their long-standing prosperity, weaving the silent cities into the vibrant tapestry of ancient Bronze Age civilization. It reminds us that even without deciphered words, the flow of goods across continents tells a profound story of human connection and collective endeavor. Now, let us move from the grand scale of international commerce to the intimate details of everyday existence within these remarkable cities. What did life truly look like for the people of the Indus Valley? What did they create with their hands, and how did they express their artistic spirit amidst the meticulous planning and extensive trade networks? Stepping through the silent ruins, we find fragments of their daily routines, glimpses of their creative impulses, and echoes of the simple pleasures that define human life across millennia. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, along with their numerous satellite settlements, were not merely centers of trade and administration. They were vibrant communities where skilled artisans practiced their crafts, where families lived out their days, and where the rhythm of life unfolded with a quiet dignity. The sheer volume and variety of artifacts unearthed provide a window into a society that valued both utility and aesthetics, producing objects of remarkable sophistication from a wide array of materials. One of the most ubiquitous and telling categories of artifacts is pottery. Everywhere you look, from the grandest public spaces to the humblest domestic dwellings, fragments of terracotta vessels tell a story of daily sustenance and artistic expression. The Harappans were master potters, employing the potter's wheel to create an astonishing range of forms, from large storage jars for grain and water to elegant serving dishes and small, delicate bowls. Their pottery was typically a buff or redware, often adorned with designs painted in black. These designs were rarely figurative, tending instead towards geometric motifs, interlocking circles, scales, checkerboard patterns, or stylized naturalistic elements like people leaves, fish, and birds. Each piece, though functional, often carried the mark of an artisan's hand, a small flourish that elevated it beyond mere utility. Imagine the sounds of the pottery kilns firing, the earthy scent of clay, and the steady hum of the potter's wheel in a distant courtyard. Beyond the practical, the Indus people also had a keen eye for playful and symbolic expression, perhaps best seen in their abundant terracotta figurines. Thousands of these small, hand-modeled figures had been discovered, ranging from simple representations to surprisingly detailed depictions. Female figurines, often adorned with elaborate headdresses and jewelry, are particularly common. Scholars have long debated their purpose. Were they household deities representing fertility and prosperity? Were they toys for children, or perhaps votive offerings? The truth may well be a combination of all these. Alongside human figures, there's a menagerie of animal forms: humped bulls, birds, dogs, and even rhinoceroses, each capturing a certain vitality. These small sculptures, often charmingly naive yet remarkably expressive, offer a tangible connection to the inner life and beliefs of a people who otherwise left us no deciphered texts to explain the world. They whisper of a connection to the natural world and perhaps a touch of whimsy in their everyday lives. Of course, no discussion of Indus Valley craftsmanship can ignore the iconic Indus seals. While we've spoken of their economic function in trade, their artistic merit is equally profound. Carved primarily from steatite, a soft stone, these seals are miniature masterpieces. Each one, typically no more than an inch or two across, features a deeply cut image, often a magnificent animal like the enigmatic unicorn, which is a creature that appears only in Indus art, perhaps a stylized bull, a powerful bull with a dewlap, or an elephant, sometimes accompanied by undeciphered script. The precision of the carving, even on such a small scale, is astounding, capturing the musculature and spirit of the animals with remarkable fidelity. These seals
often found with a boss on the back for a string, were likely worn or carried, perhaps as personal identifiers or amulets, imbued with a power that transcended their practical use in commerce. They are the artistic signature of the Indus civilization, instantly recognizable and deeply resonant.
Smooth, stable male podcast. The Indus people also had a profound appreciation for personal adornment. Jewelry and ornaments were widely worn by both men and women, rich and poor, though the materials certainly varied. Beads were a particular specialty. Imagine the vibrant stalls in the markets, overflowing with glittering beads of carnelian, lapis lazuli, agate, jasper, and steatite. These were not merely found, they were meticulously crafted. Artisans developed sophisticated techniques for drilling tiny holes through hard stone beads, some no larger than a grain of rice, and for etching intricate white patterns onto dark carnelian, a process that still puzzles modern jewelers. Necklaces, bracelets, bangles, anklets, ear ornaments, and rings have all been recovered, often in layers that suggest a love for elaborate personal display. Even the simplest inhabitants might have worn a single, carefully crafted shell bangle, while the elite might have adorned themselves with gold and silver, though these precious metals are less common in the archaeological record, perhaps indicative of their rarity or thorough recycling. The very act of creating these delicate pieces speaks to a society that found beauty in the precise and the intricate. While large-scale, monumental sculpture is rare in the Indus Valley compared to Egypt or Mesopotamia, the few pieces that have been found are exceptional. The most famous is perhaps the priest-king bust from Mohenjo-Daro, a serene, bearded figure carved from steatite, with half-closed eyes that suggest contemplation. Though only 17.5 centimeters tall, its presence is commanding, with a trefoil pattern on the robe and a neatly tied headband. Similarly striking is the dancing girl of Mohenjo-Daro, a small bronze statue barely 10.5 centimeters high, but full of dynamic energy. She stands in a confident pose, one hand on her hip, the other resting on her knee, her body adorned with bangles. These figures, though few, demonstrate a mastery of sculptural technique and a keen observation of the human form, hinting at a broader artistic tradition that may have largely been rendered in perishable materials. Beyond the overtly artistic, daily life was shaped by a myriad of practical objects. We find evidence of spinning and weaving through spindle whorls made of terracotta and shell, suggesting that textiles were a crucial part of their daily lives, providing clothing and perhaps even items for trade. Though the actual fabrics have long since disintegrated, one can imagine the vibrant colors and patterns woven into their garments. Copper and bronze were worked into tools, axes, chisels, saws, knives, as well as weapons, though these were less common, perhaps speaking to a less militaristic society. Weights and measures, as mentioned before, were precise and standardized, indicating a highly organized commercial life. Life in the Indus cities was also clearly not all work and no play. Evidence of games has been found, including dice with standard numbering, suggesting a love for chance and strategy. Terracotta toys, miniature carts, whistles, rattles, and animal figures on wheels speak to the presence of children and the universal joy of play. Imagine the laughter echoing through the narrow city lanes as children pulled their wheeled toys or rolled their terracotta balls. In the essence, the silent cities, when viewed through the lens of their arts, crafts, and daily artifacts, come alive. They reveal a people who were not only brilliant engineers and astute traders, but also skilled artisans, discerning aesthetes, and individuals who understood the importance of both practicality and beauty in their lives. The intricate beads, the expressive figurines, the powerful seals, and the humble pottery all combined to paint a portrait of a sophisticated society where daily life was rich with purpose, creativity, and quiet sense of order. These small, often overlooked objects are the true storytellers, breaking the silence of millennia and offering us a profound connection to the vanished world of the Indus Valley Civilization.
The small, often overlooked objects are the true storytellers, breaking the silence of millennia and offering us a profound connection to the vanished world of the Indus Valley Civilization. Yet, as captivating as these glimpses into daily life are, they lead us to perhaps the most enduring and unsettling mystery of this ancient culture, its enigmatic decline. Theories and hypotheses.
For centuries, the thriving cities of the Indus Valley stood as testaments to human ingenuity and communal harmony. They built, they traded, they created, and they lived in a meticulously ordered world. But then, sometime around 1900 BCE, a profound shift occurred. The great urban centers, once vibrant hubs of activity, began to show signs of stress. Populations dwindled, the sophisticated drainage systems fell into disuse, and the uniformity that had been a hallmark of the civilization started to fragment. Eventually, these magnificent cities were abandoned, left to be reclaimed by the earth, their existence forgotten for nearly 3,500 years. The reasons behind this decline have long been a subject of intense academic debate and public fascination. Unlike the more dramatic collapses of other ancient civilizations, often marked by invasions or internal strife, the Indus Valley Civilization appears to have been a more protracted and nuanced affair, leaving behind few clear answers. There is no single, universally accepted theory, but rather a complex tapestry of hypotheses, each shedding a little light on different facets of this slow fade into history. One of the most compelling and widely supported theories points to climatic change and environmental catastrophe. The Indus Valley, like many ancient civilizations, was profoundly dependent on its rivers and the seasonal monsoon rains. Paleoclimate data, gathered from various sources like sediment cores and ancient pollen records, suggests a significant shift in weather patterns around 4,000 years ago. The monsoon, which brought vital summer rains to the region, became increasingly erratic and eventually weakened considerably. This would have led to prolonged periods of drought, severely impacting agricultural productivity. Imagine a society built on the surplus of wheat and barley, suddenly facing crop failures year after year. The fertile plains would have become less productive, unable to support the dense urban populations. Furthermore, geological studies indicate that the mighty Ghaggar-Hakra River system, which some scholars identify as the ancient Saraswati River, began to dry up around this time. This river, fed by Himalayan glaciers and monsoon rains, was a crucial lifeline for many Harappan settlements, particularly in the eastern regions. Its desiccation would have forced mass migrations and rendered vast areas uninhabitable. As the lifeblood of the civilization receded, so too would its ability to sustain its elaborate urban structure. The sheer scale of the population that relied on these water sources meant that even a slight shift in climate could have catastrophic ripple effects, leading to widespread famine and societal breakdown. Another significant environmental factor often cited is flooding and changes in river courses. The Indus River, a dynamic and powerful force, was prone to devastating floods. Archaeological evidence from Mohenjo-Daro, in particular, shows multiple layers of thick silt deposits, suggesting repeated and destructive flooding events. While the Harappans were masterful engineers capable of building formidable flood defenses, a series of increasingly severe or prolonged floods could have overwhelmed their infrastructure, damaged agricultural land, and disrupted trade routes. Moreover, rivers naturally shift their courses over long periods due to tectonic arcticity or sediment deposition. A major river like the Indus, abandoning its established channel, could have left thriving cities stranded in arid landscapes, cutting them off from water, transportation, and fertile soil. Such an event would necessitate the abandonment of settlements and a move to new, more viable locations. The role of tectonic activity also cannot be overlooked. The Indus region is seismically active, prone to earthquakes. Major earthquakes could have caused widespread destruction to cities, damaged irrigation systems, and crucially, altered the course of rivers.
An uplift in one area could have diverted a river away from a city, while subsidence in another could have created new flood zones. The sophisticated urban planning of the Harappans, while resilient, would have struggled to cope with repeated large-scale geological disruptions that fundamentally reshaped their environment. While direct archaeological evidence of widespread seismic destruction causing the entire decline is scarce, it remains a contributing factor to localized pressures and environmental changes. For many years, a popular and historically influential theory was the Aryan invasion theory. This hypothesis, first proposed by Sir Mortimer Wheeler, suggested that the Indus Valley Civilization was violently conquered and destroyed by an invading Indo-Aryan people from Central Asia, who later established the Vedic culture of India. Wheeler pointed to skeletal remains found at Mohenjo-Daro, interpreted as evidence of a massacre, and references in the Rig Veda to Indra, the Aryan god, destroying fortified cities. However, this theory has been largely discredited by modern archaeological and genetic research. The massacre evidence proved to be inconclusive, representing only a few individuals, not widespread conflict. Furthermore, there's a lack of archaeological evidence for large-scale destruction or a sudden cultural break consistent with an invasion. Instead, research indicates a more gradual process of decline and cultural continuity, suggesting a transformation rather than an abrupt overthrow. The idea of a wholesale invasion simply doesn't align with the nuanced archaeological record. While less prominent, some scholars have also considered the possibility of epidemics or widespread disease. Dense urban living, even with advanced sanitation, could have created conditions ripe for the rapid spread of pathogens. A virulent plague or epidemic could devastate a population, leading to social collapse and abandonment of cities. However, direct archaeological evidence for such an event is incredibly difficult to find, making this theory largely speculative.
Finally, internal factors, such as economic decline, overexploitation of resources, or a breakdown in social cohesion. Perhaps the highly centralized, yet seemingly non-hierarchical system of the Harappans began to strain under the pressure of growing populations or environmental changes. Over-reliance on a few staple crops could have led to soil exhaustion. The intricate trade networks, so vital for acquiring raw materials like copper, tin, and precious stones, might have been disrupted by external factors or internal instabilities, leading to economic contraction. If the administrative system, which maintained the impressive standardization across such a vast area, began to falter, it could have led to a loss of control, increasing regionalism, and a decline in the public works necessary to sustain the cities. It is crucial to understand that the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization was likely not due to a single cataclysmic event, but rather a complex interplay of multiple factors. Environmental changes, particularly the drying of rivers and weakening monsoons, appear to have been the primary drivers, gradually making the sustained urban life of the Harappan era increasingly difficult. These environmental stresses would have put immense pressure on their agricultural base, leading to resource scarcity and forced migrations. This in turn could have exacerbated existing internal weaknesses, perhaps straining their social and economic structures, disrupting trade, and leading to a gradual deurbanization. The process was not instantaneous across the entire civilization. Some cities might have faced floods, others droughts, and still others economic hardship, leading to a staggered regional decline rather than a simultaneous collapse. What emerged was a late Harappan phase, characterized by smaller, more rural settlements, a decline in standardized artifacts, and a loss of the monumental architecture and sophisticated city planning that defined the earlier period. The people did not vanish, rather they dispersed, adapted, and their culture transformed. Elements of Harappan life, certain crafts, pottery styles, and perhaps even some religious beliefs continued in later regional cultures, indicating a process of decentralization and cultural diffusion rather than complete extinction. The silent cities stand as a monument to a thriving civilization that eventually yielded to the relentless pressures of a changing world, leaving behind a tantalizing mystery for us to unravel. While the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization remains shrouded in a captivating mystery, modern archaeology and scientific advancements are slowly, patiently unraveling its silence. The story of the Harappans is not a closed book. It is a continually unfolding narrative enriched by every new discovery and every innovative analytical technique. Archaeological work continues across the vast expanse of the former Indus domain. Sites like Rocky Gari in Haryana, India, which is now considered the largest Harappan site, continue to yield extraordinary insights. Excavations here have revealed intricate city planning, craft production, and even DNA evidence from ancient burials, offering unprecedented opportunities to understand the genetic origins and health of the Harappan people. Similarly, Dholavira in Gujarat, with its unique water management system and monumental architecture, continues to reveal the ingenuity of this civilization, showcasing their adaptation to arid environments. The port city of Lothal offers further evidence of their extensive maritime trade networks, while numerous smaller sites across Pakistan and India provide crucial pieces of the larger puzzle. Beyond traditional excavation, new technologies are revolutionizing our understanding. Remote sensing and LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, are allowing archaeologists to identify previously undiscovered settlements and map ancient river courses beneath the modern landscape, revealing the true extent of the Indus network and the environmental factors that shaped it. DNA analysis of ancient human remains is providing genetic links between the Harappans and later populations, shedding light on migration patterns and the continuity of genetic heritage. Isotopic analysis of bones and teeth reveal details about ancient diets, migration, and even the source of raw materials, allowing us to reconstruct trade routes with incredible precision. These cutting-edge techniques are painting a far more detailed picture of daily life, health, and population movements than was ever possible before. Perhaps the most significant and tantalizing prospect for future discoveries lies in the Indus script. Despite decades of dedicated effort, this unique writing system, found on thousands of seals and tablets, remains undeciphered. Various attempts have been made, proposing links to Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, and Munda language families, but none have gained widespread acceptance. The challenges are immense. The inscriptions are typically very short. There are no known bilingual texts, and the underlying language is unknown. However, researchers continue to apply advanced computational linguistics and statistical analysis, hoping to find patterns and break the code. The decipherment of the Indus script would be a monumental breakthrough, unlocking the Harappans' own voice, revealing their myths, their history, their administrative practices, and their worldview directly. It would truly break the silence of millennia and transform our understanding of this enigmatic people.
Modern scholarship is also re-evaluating the narrative of the Indus decline, moving beyond the simple idea of a mysterious disappearance to one of transformation and adaptation. Instead of a catastrophic collapse, many now see a process of de-urbanization and regionalization. The late Harappan and post-Harappan phases are increasingly recognized as periods where the population dispersed, moving eastward and southward, adapting their lifestyle to new environments. While the grand urban centers faded, many elements of Harappan culture, from their pottery techniques to their agricultural practices and possibly even certain religious motifs, appear to have continued in later Indian traditions. This suggests a profound cultural continuity rather than a clean break, embedding the legacy of the Indus Valley Civilization deep within the fabric of subsequent South Asian cultures. The future prospects for understanding the Indus Valley Civilization are incredibly exciting. There are undoubtedly many more sites yet to be discovered, hidden beneath the shifting sands or modern agricultural fields. Continued interdisciplinary research, combining archaeology with climate science, geology, genetics, and linguistics, promises to yield even deeper insights. As we refine our tools and our understanding,
we may one day be able to piece together not just how these cities declined, but the minute details of their daily lives, their beliefs, and their eventual transformation. The silent cities are slowly, eloquently speaking to us through the tireless work of scholars and the power of new discoveries, ensuring that the legacy of this remarkable civilization will continue to inspire and educate for generations to come. And so, as the dust of millennia settles and the sands reluctantly yield their secrets, the silent cities of the Indus Valley begin to speak, not with a roar, but with a gentle, persistent whisper. Though their script remains a puzzle, their rulers nameless, and their ultimate fate still debated, their story is no longer one of complete disappearance. Instead, it is a testament to the enduring human spirit, to adaptability, and to the profound impact a civilization can have even when its direct voice is muted by time. We are, in essence, listening to the echoes of their daily lives. The precise placement of a brick, the careful carving of a seal, the elegant curve of a pot. These tangible fragments are woven into a narrative of deep cultural continuity, a rich tapestry that stretches from those ancient riverbanks into the present day, influencing traditions and practices across a vast subcontinent. The journey to fully understand them is far from over. With every shovel of earth, every refined scientific technique, every new interpretation, another piece of their intricate world comes into focus. The cities may be silent, but their legacy resonates, inviting us to contemplate the ingenuity, the peace, and the mystery of a people who built a world of such order, only to leave it as a profound, beautiful riddle for us to unravel. Perhaps with patience and persistent curiosity, we will one day truly hear the full symphony of the Indus, a forgotten melody rediscovered across the ages. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the quiet grandeur of the Indus Valley Civilization. If this exploration of ancient mysteries brought you a moment of calm or sparked your curiosity, please consider subscribing to Whispervale. You'll find more stories from the forgotten corners of history designed to accompany your quiet moments. And if you're ready for another tale, perhaps our exploration of the labyrinthian passages beneath forgotten pyramids will gently guide you into your next moment of peace. Until then, take care.